God has long been seen as a guiding light, an unbreakable source of faith for millions around the world. But not everyone chooses to follow that light. In some cases, faith itself is shattered by those who once believed the deepest. Even among celebrated stars and cultural legends, there are those who turn their backs on the beliefs they were raised with since birth. They questioned God's existence, rejected sacred teachings, and in some cases, openly defied them. Who are these figures, and what drove them to abandon the faith they once held sacred? The stories you're about to hear uncover the shocking truths behind why 13 black stars walked away from the God they once worshipped with all their hearts. Morgan Freeman. Once a devout Baptist child, raised to fear God as the ultimate truth, Morgan Freeman would later call God a human invention, and even mock the idea on screen. A towering icon of Hollywood cinema, Freeman is celebrated not only for his legendary roles but also for his commanding narration and respected presence as a television host. Born in Memphis, Tennessee, he grew up in a rigid Baptist household where Christianity wasn't merely a belief, it was the backbone of daily life. His deeply religious grandmother enforced strict discipline, shaping his early faith and moral compass. But Freeman's life did not follow the path laid out for him. As he matured, the foundation of his childhood belief began to crack. During his teenage years, exposure to science, philosophy, and broader ideas sparked doubt. Those doubts quietly grew, and by the time his acting career exploded in the 1970s and 1980s, Freeman was no longer willing to hide them. Gradually, he distanced himself from Christianity, ultimately rejecting the existence of God altogether. In a 2010 CNN interview, Freeman stated bluntly, "God does not exist." The declaration shocked many, especially given that he had famously portrayed God himself in Bruce Almighty, 2003. That once revered role, however, later became a symbol he used to challenge and even ridicule religious belief. And this was only the beginning of his public break with faith. By 2016, while hosting The Story of God, Freeman openly identified as an atheist. He argued that God is nothing more than an imaginary construct, created by humans to explain the unexplainable. Yet his departure from religion was far from simple. Freeman described an intense internal struggle, one shaped by the clash between scientific understanding and religious doctrine. To him, Christianity became a coping mechanism, a way for people to manage fear of death, disasters, and forces beyond human control. Even more personal was the role race played in his transformation. Growing up amid racial discrimination, Freeman came to feel that religion offered little liberation for Black communities, functioning instead as another tool of control. On The Story of God, he spoke candidly, criticizing Christian teachings for dividing humanity into rigid ideas of good and evil, fostering conflict rather than unity. In contrast, Freeman found solace in Eastern philosophies, particularly Buddhism and Hinduism, which he believed offered greater tolerance, compassion, and understanding. Using his unmistakable voice, he shared these views with millions, challenging the world to see celebrities not just as entertainers, but as catalysts for rethinking deeply rooted beliefs. His stance was not without backlash. In an industry where stars often avoid controversial beliefs, Freeman chose defiance, walking away from the faith that defined his childhood in pursuit of something he considered more honest, more rational, and ultimately, more free. Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson openly supports abortion and LGBTQ+ rights, and has never been shy about calling religion a tool of control. One of the most commanding figures in modern cinema, Jackson is famous for characters overflowing with intensity and attitude. But long before Hollywood, his life was shaped by faith. Raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee, within a Southern Baptist household, religion wasn't just belief, it was the backbone of Black community life. From a young age, Jackson attended church, sang in the choir, studied the Bible, and absorbed religious values meant to protect Black families in a racist society. Yet his relationship with faith would not remain intact. The first cracks appeared in the 1960s, when Jackson became deeply involved in the civil rights movement and later aligned with the Black Panthers. Fighting racism on the front lines exposed harsh contradictions, moments when religion stood silent instead of standing with the oppressed. Gradually, doubt replaced devotion. By the 1970s, as he battled addiction and personal collapse, Jackson drifted away from the church entirely. Faith, he felt, offered comfort in words but failed to deliver real support when Black communities needed it most. During this period, the influence of Marxist thought and revolutionary politics reshaped his worldview. Jackson began to see religion not as a force of liberation, but as a system designed to control class and race. By 2013, he publicly rejected the idea that his talent was God-given, a statement that stunned fans and deeply unsettled religious audiences. Then came the 2016 BET Awards, where he thanked God on stage, only to immediately follow with sharp criticism of religion's failure to bring meaningful change to Black lives. To many, the praise sounded more like irony than reverence. In later interviews, Jackson became even more outspoken. He condemned Christianity when it drew rigid lines between us and them, alienating marginalized groups such as LGBTQ+ individuals and supporters of abortion rights. Religion, in his view, had stopped being a solution. Self-reliance replaced faith. Personal responsibility replaced prayer. That shift, he believes, helped him survive addiction, rebuild his life, and conquer one of the most competitive industries in the world. Interestingly, his films often mirror these beliefs. In Pulp Fiction, 1994, his character quotes scripture while embodying moral contradiction, a symbolic clash between religious language and human sin. Later, The Sunset Limited, 2011, further cemented his image as a man wrestling with faith rather than surrendering to it, aligning with his public support for abortion rights and LGBTQ+ equality, positions that openly challenge traditional doctrine. Yet the story isn't black and white. Despite publicly distancing himself from organized religion, Jackson still reads the Bible and donates to Baptist churches. He hasn't abandoned spirituality, only blind belief. Today, he considers himself spiritual, not devout. And no matter the backlash, Samuel L. Jackson remains unwavering. To him, personal effort outweighs unquestioning faith, and he refuses to stay silent against any system he believes exists to control the oppressed. Alice Walker. Alice Walker's journey from Christianity to pantheism was not an act of rebellion. It was an awakening shaped by pain, truth, and the fight for Black women's freedom. Best known as the author of The Color Purple, Walker is more than a celebrated writer and filmmaker. She stands as a powerful symbol of feminism, spiritual independence, and fearless thought. Born into a Black Baptist family in Eaton, Georgia, she grew up surrounded by racism and poverty, where the church served as a refuge. Prayer, hymns, and Sunday services were woven into the fabric of her childhood, offering comfort and hope during harsh times. But as Walker matured, education and lived experience began to crack the foundation of that faith. College exposed her to feminist theory and sharpened her awareness of the deep scars left by gender and racial oppression. Christianity, once a source of solace, slowly became a system she began to question. That inner conflict first surfaced publicly in The Color Purple, 1982, where the character Celie ultimately rejects the God she was taught to worship. Far from blasphemy, this moment reflected Walker's own realization. Religion had often been used as a tool to silence, control, and subjugate, especially Black women. 1 year later, Walker openly declared her departure from Christianity, embracing pantheism instead. She no longer believed in a distant, personal God, but found the sacred in nature, the universe, and human connection. To her, the Christian image of God, as a white, male authority, could not embody the values she held most dear: freedom, equality, and respect for identity. Influenced by feminism, African spiritual traditions, and her own experiences of discrimination, Walker shed what she saw as the blindness of inherited religion. This transformation made her a bold voice for spiritual liberation, inspiring many women to question oppressive belief systems. Yet her stance sparked intense backlash. The Color Purple was banned in schools and attacked by religious conservatives for its unflinching critique of faith. Still, the novel triumphed, winning the 1983 Pulitzer Prize and later becoming a landmark film. Alice Walker's views on sexual freedom, self-salvation, and independent thought ignited fierce debate, but they also launched a cultural reckoning. Her story is not simply about abandoning religion. It is about reclaiming power, redefining the sacred, and daring the world to rethink what it has long been told to worship. Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg shocked audiences when she once referred to Hitler as a Christian and openly mocked prayer on The View. A brilliant actress and celebrated TV host, Whoopi is known not only for her massive success, but also as one of Hollywood's most outspoken controversy magnets. Raised in a blended Jewish and Catholic household, her early life was deeply rooted in Catholic tradition. She spent her childhood immersed in church rituals, prayer, Bible study, and strict discipline at St. Columba Catholic School. Growing up in the harsh Chelsea Elliott housing projects, faith became her emotional lifeline in a world full of struggle and instability. But those same life experiences planted the seeds of doubt. As she entered adulthood, Whoopi faced crushing hardships, including severe addiction and repeated career setbacks. These struggles marked the beginning of her shift away from religion. By the 1970s, she began critically re-examining everything she had been taught in church. What followed was growing frustration with what she perceived as hypocrisy within Catholic doctrine. The faith that once promised comfort no longer gave her peace. Experiences of racism, combined with the pressures of addiction, led her to see Catholicism as an empty structure, offering judgment instead of support when she needed it most. Her disagreement deepened over the Church's stance on abortion and LGBTQ+ rights, values she felt were incompatible with compassion and modern reality. To Whoopi, Catholic doctrine increasingly looked like a system that preserved oppression, divided communities, and pushed her further away from a faith she once trusted. By 1980, after joining a provocative stage production, she openly began mocking religion in public. From that point on, she emerged as one of Hollywood's most visible voices of atheism, a stance that peaked in 2015 when she declared, "Religion is a human creation." That same year, she met Pope Francis, yet she never softened her criticism of the Church. In one blunt interview, she even labeled Hitler a Christian, a statement meant to attack what she saw as the moral emptiness of organized religion. Her role as a nun in Sister Act, 1992, further reflected her belief that blind loyalty to faith was not the solution to real-world problems. To her, conservative Catholic doctrine simply no longer fit the realities of modern society. Ultimately, Whoopi abandoned belief in a personal God altogether, embracing what she called a free spirituality, one where individuals define their own beliefs without rigid religious rules. On The View, she openly mocked prayer while defending abortion rights and LGBTQ+ equality, causes she believes deserve dignity and respect. That unapologetic honesty, however, also made her a lightning rod for criticism, with many accusing her of bias and hostility toward traditional religious values. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson's skepticism toward God was not born out of rebellion, but out of science's refusal to accept unanswered claims. One of the world's most famous astrophysicists, Tyson reshaped how millions understand the universe, yet his journey began in faith. Born into a Black Catholic family in the Bronx, New York, he was raised in a deeply religious household. His mother was a strict Catholic, and the church was once his refuge during a childhood filled with struggle. But rather than clinging to the faith he inherited, Tyson slowly began to drift away from it. As a young boy, he posed a difficult question to a priest. Why did God create the universe 13.8 billion years ago and not sooner or later? The answer he received was simply, "That's a mystery." To Tyson, that response felt like an evasion. It planted the first seed of doubt, convincing him that religion avoided evidence, sidestepped science, and resisted truth. As he entered his teenage years, Tyson's passion for astronomy only deepened his skepticism. He struggled to reconcile what the Bible taught with what scientific discoveries revealed about the cosmos. Raised to believe Earth was the center of creation, he began reading astronomy and philosophy in the 1970s and discovered glaring contradictions between Scripture's descriptions of a flat, unmoving world and science's ever-expanding universe. By the time he studied at Harvard and Princeton in the 1980s, his transformation was complete. Tyson abandoned Catholicism entirely, not only rejecting belief in God, but distancing himself from all Christian labels. He embraced science as his guiding force, no longer viewing religion as a source of salvation or absolute truth. In 1999, Tyson publicly declared his atheism in his essay Holy Wars, marking a definitive break from the faith of his youth. The culmination of this intellectual revolution came in 2014 with his remake of Cosmos, where he openly challenged religion and famously dismissed intelligent design as a philosophy of ignorance. He argued that science does not need God, but that God requires science to justify existence. His views sparked fierce backlash, especially within the Black Christian community, yet they also elevated him as an icon of modern atheism. Unafraid to challenge religious authority, Tyson championed reason and evidence over doctrine. After decades spent exploring the universe unbound by faith, he demonstrated that beliefs inherited at birth are not always the ones that survive the search for truth. Meshell Ndegeocello. Meshell Ndegeocello, bassist, singer, producer, and unapologetic queer icon, rose from the strict confines of the Baptist Church to become one of the most powerful voices in Black queer music. Raised in a military family in Berlin and immersed in a deeply religious Baptist environment, Meshell's childhood revolved around church life. Her mother worked in church health services, and from an early age Meshell sang in the choir, studied scripture, and was taught one unyielding lesson: homosexuality was an unforgivable sin, a straight path to hell. Those teachings shattered when Meshell came to understand her own identity. In the 1980s, she slowly realized she was a lesbian, and an intense inner war began. Everything she had memorized, every verse warning that people like her were evil, broken, or possessed, now turned inward. She could no longer accept doctrines that labeled her existence sinful. Torn between her authentic self and the faith of her family and community, Meshell endured years of emotional pain and spiritual torment. Eventually, she chose truth over fear. She chose nature. She chose herself. With her 1993 debut album Plantation Lullabies, Meshell made it clear she would not be silent, using her lyrics to challenge religious hypocrisy and inherited shame. By the time she released Leviticus, her critique was unmistakable. She described the church as a prison, one that didn't just confine souls, but inflicted lasting psychological damage. The song tells the devastating story of a young gay boy beaten and condemned by parents who weaponized the Bible, a raw and painful indictment of how religion has been used to brutalize queer lives. As Meshell continued to question scripture, she uncovered more truths that pushed her further away from the faith of her upbringing, recognizing how biblical passages had also been used to justify slavery and control oppressed communities. Religion, she realized, had long been manipulated to serve power, not compassion. In the end, Meshell made her stance final: she would never return to the church. She chose to live openly, honestly, and without apology. That choice transformed her into a Black queer music icon, eventually earning the industry's highest recognition while never compromising her message. Her music doesn't just entertain, it heals, confronts, and speaks for those silenced by conservative faith systems. For countless LGBTQ+ individuals trapped between belief and identity, Meshell Ndegeocello became proof that freedom is possible, and that truth, once claimed, can be revolutionary. Queen Latifah. Once a devout Baptist, Queen Latifah walked away from religion after the devastating loss of her brother. Known worldwide as a trailblazing force in entertainment, Queen Latifah is far more than a singer, actress, and producer. She is a survivor shaped by conflict and transformation. Born Dana Owens in Newark, New Jersey, she grew up in a household divided by faith. Her father was a Muslim police officer, her mother a devoted Baptist schoolteacher. From an early age, her mother took her to church, where young Dana sang in the choir and quickly became the church's golden child. Surrounded by hymns and sermons, she was raised to believe deeply in a loving, protective God, becoming a truly devoted believer. That faith shattered in 1992. When her brother was suddenly killed in a car accident, Queen Latifah's world collapsed. Grief opened the door to questions she had never allowed herself to ask. If God was real, if he was merciful, how could he allow such a loss? That single question haunted her, slowly unraveling everything she had once believed. The idea of an all-powerful, benevolent God no longer made sense in the face of such pain. Her faith in divine purpose crumbled under the weight of unanswered sorrow. At the same time, Queen Latifah was coming to terms with her identity as a lesbian, and she felt religion stood in direct opposition to who she truly was. To her, faith no longer felt like comfort, it felt like judgment. What once promised love and protection now felt like betrayal. That emotional fracture pushed her to walk away from organized religion altogether. By 2000, she had officially rejected both Islam and Christianity, concluding that religious institutions often enforce rigid moral codes and use them as tools of control, particularly against Black women and the LGBTQ+ community. In the years that followed, Queen Latifah chose honesty over approval. She lived openly with her partner, Ebony Nichols, and in 2019, they welcomed a child together, an unshakable declaration of her freedom and self-acceptance. She also distanced herself from film roles that portrayed her as a nun or a devout moral symbol, refusing to reinforce belief systems she no longer embraced. Today, Queen Latifah stands as one of Hollywood's most powerful Black LGBTQ+ icons. She is not only a successful artist but a fearless pioneer who challenges religious, cultural, and social boundaries. Though her path to freedom meant turning away from doctrines she once held sacred, she carries no regret. In leaving behind God as she once knew him, Queen Latifah found something just as powerful: faith in herself and faith in love. Killer Mike, the grandson of a Baptist pastor, became the man who challenged the image of a white God imposed on Black faith. A celebrated rapper and outspoken social activist, Killer Mike is a cultural force, crowned with 3 consecutive Grammy wins. Born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, in a deeply religious Black Baptist family, his mother sang in the church choir, his grandfather preached from the pulpit. Mike's childhood was steeped in scripture and gospel hymns. From an early age, he was taught that a white God was the savior of Black people. But as he grew older, that teaching began to crack. Mike saw a brutal contradiction: Black communities drowning in poverty while churches accumulated wealth, offering prayers instead of real solutions. What once felt like faith began to look like control. He came to believe that the white image of God wasn't just a distorted version of Christianity, it was a tool of oppression, one that had been used to justify slavery for nearly 400 years. Verses his grandfather and church elders quoted without question, Ephesians 6 verse 5, Colossians 3 verse 22, now haunted him, scriptures that appeared to sanctify obedience and enslavement. That doubt ignited into rebellion when Mike began reading Malcolm X and studying Marxist theory. By 2012, alongside LP, he formed Run the Jewels, transforming his music into a weapon of resistance. His lyrics openly challenged the church, dismantled the myth of the white God, and questioned the true role religion played in the Black community. His worldview was permanently altered. Killer Mike didn't stop at music. In 2019, he introduced The Church of Sleep on Netflix's Trigger Warning, with episode 3 symbolizing a radical break from Christian values he believed had long been used as chains rather than comfort. The episode sparked conversations about liberation from religious indoctrination and the psychological grip of the white God narrative. After the killing of George Floyd in 2020, Mike's voice grew even louder. Speaking in Atlanta, he condemned decades of teachings that urged Black people to pray instead of rise, to endure instead of resist. This moment marked the final break in his religious journey. Killer Mike publicly renounced Christianity, declared himself an atheist, and refused invitations to speak at churches, especially the megachurches he saw as symbols of betrayal. Today, Killer Mike calls on the Black community to confront religion's role in historical oppression, to shatter the image of the white God, and to seek freedom beyond belief systems rooted in control. Now an icon of religious rebellion, his 3 consecutive Grammys stand not just as musical achievements, but as proof that his so-called betrayal is, in his eyes, a cultural revolution. Killer Mike has emerged as one of the most influential voices in the growing atheist movement within the Black community, leading a fight to reclaim freedom, dignity, and self-determination after centuries of oppression. John Legend, once a church choir director, now a public supporter of abortion rights, shattering everything he was taught to believe. John Legend, the gifted singer and producer who rose to global stardom with 12 Grammy Awards, was not born into fame but into faith. Raised in a strict Pentecostal family in Springfield, Ohio, religion shaped every corner of his childhood. Church wasn't just a Sunday ritual, it was life itself. His grandmother played the organ, his grandfather was a pastor, and from the time John was 4, he was trained at the church piano. By 7, he was leading children's choirs. At just 12, he became an adult choir director. He was baptized, spoke in tongues, and spent 6 to 7 days a week immersed in church activities. Secular music was forbidden. Non-Billy Graham films were off-limits. Faith was law. But those beliefs eventually became chains. In the early 1990s, while studying at the University of Pennsylvania, John began drifting away from the church and towards secular music. Still, after his breakthrough album Get Lifted in 2004, the pull of gospel and religious expectation never fully released him. The deeper his fame grew, the more intensely he felt the contradiction between the doctrines he was raised on and the values forming within him. That conflict exploded into clarity in 2018. His wife, Chrissy Teigen, nearly died from a placental abruption. Doctors told them an abortion was necessary to save her life. In that moment, doctrine collided head-on with reality. Abortion was labeled murder. Yet the woman he loved was dying. Faced with choosing between rigid faith and human life, something in John broke, and then woke up. He began re-examining everything he had been taught. His shift didn't stop at abortion rights. As he searched for answers, he saw contradictions he could no longer ignore. Bible passages that justified slavery, condemned homosexuality, and reinforced systems of discrimination. He had been taught that God was love and salvation for all, yet the God he now saw reflected society's prejudices and oppressive power structures. In 2020, John said it plainly on Twitter, "I used to be a church choir director. Now I support abortion rights." That's evolution. To the Pentecostal community, it sounded like heresy, almost a declaration of war. To many who once adored him as a model believer, John Legend became a symbol of betrayal. Soon after, he was effectively boycotted by that world. Still, John didn't retreat. Despite the backlash, he moved forward with a new mindset, fully embracing his secular life and career. At times, he still performs gospel songs, but not as expressions of faith. To him now, they are culture, history, and musical heritage, echoes of a past that shaped him but no longer defines his belief in God. Jamie Foxx was once a church piano prodigy, a boy shaped by faith before he ever found fame. Today, he's a Hollywood icon who openly credits science, not God, for saving his life. The journey between those two worlds is far darker, deeper, and more complicated than most people realize. Before the awards, before the spotlight, Jamie Foxx was raised in Terrell, Texas, inside an extremely conservative Baptist household. Religion wasn't just part of his life, it was his life. His grandmother, Esther Marie Talley, a strict and devout churchwoman, forced him to master the church piano at just 5 years old. The church became his second home. He attended services 4 or 5 times a week. Secular music was labeled the devil's work. Television was forbidden, except for Billy Graham sermons. Every rule was absolute. Every belief unquestionable. That rigid world began to crack when Jamie entered college. Freedom exposed him to life beyond the church walls. Music without guilt, ideas without fear. He slowly realized the faith he was raised in no longer fit who he was becoming. But it wasn't until he portrayed Ray Charles that his beliefs truly unraveled. Ray's life was filled with tragedy, struggle, and resilience, but not blind faith. Ray didn't wait for divine rescue. He survived through willpower, intelligence, and human strength. That realization hit Jamie hard. It forced him to confront everything he had been taught about God, suffering, and salvation. Then came 2019, the moment that shattered what remained of his faith. Jamie Foxx suffered a near-fatal stroke. As he lay on the edge of death, many expected the familiar narrative: prayers answered, God praised, miracles claimed. But Jamie chose honesty instead. He looked straight at the truth and said, "I thank science and doctors, not miracles. For his family and religious community, that statement landed like a punch to the gut. But Jamie stood firm. The people who saved him weren't angels from the sky. They were skilled professionals using human knowledge, technology, and science. That brush with death forced Jamie to reevaluate everything. The church no longer felt like a sanctuary for his soul. In a 2023 interview, he publicly declared he was no longer Baptist. No more hymns. No more prayer. No more submission to beliefs that once controlled his life. He chose a new path, one defined by personal freedom, critical thought, and justice. The consequences were real. He faced backlash from the Texas Baptist community. He rejected roles portraying pastors or devout religious figures, refusing to reinforce values he had already walked away from. Instead, Jamie used his platform differently. He voiced support for abortion rights. He openly stood with the LGBTQ+ community. He challenged conservative ideologies that once shaped him. Jamie Foxx didn't abandon faith lightly. His transformation was the result of years of internal conflict, pressure, and belief systems that no longer aligned with his conscience. In walking away, he chose freedom, not just for himself, but for those society continues to marginalize. His story isn't about rebellion. It's about breaking free and choosing truth, humanity, and justice over fear and tradition. Frank Ocean. When Frank Ocean wrote Bad Religion, he wasn't just writing a song, he was confessing a wound. In that haunting track, prayer becomes a metaphor for toxic, unrequited love. Born Christopher Edwin Breaux, Frank Ocean emerged as a groundbreaking singer-songwriter and a pioneer of alternative R&B. But long before the acclaim, he was raised inside an extremely conservative Baptist household in New Orleans, Louisiana. From childhood, he was surrounded by sermons branding homosexuality as a mortal sin, a one-way road to hell. His mother and grandmother, deeply devout women, took him to church 5 to 6 times a week, training him in the choir and molding his life around rigid religious doctrine. Then Hurricane Katrina shattered everything, forcing the Ocean family to relocate to California. Yet distance couldn't erase the past. The teachings he grew up with followed him, trapping him in a painful inner conflict between faith and love. In 2011, Frank broke that silence with a raw Tumblr confession, revealing that he had once been in love with a man. The admission sent shockwaves through the music industry and ignited fierce backlash within Baptist circles. Still, he refused to retreat. On July 4, 2012, just days before releasing Channel Orange, Ocean publicly acknowledged his sexuality again, triggering another cultural and religious firestorm. But the real confrontation came through his music. On Bad Religion, Frank openly lays bare the suffering his faith inflicted on him, comparing prayer, once sold to him as salvation, to a love that never loves you back. For him, those prayers brought no healing, no peace, no redemption. The lyrics cut deep, slicing straight into the core of Baptist doctrine. By the time Blonde arrived in 2016, Frank Ocean was even more unapologetic. In Godspeed, he sings with a church-like tenderness, yet the words are filled with doubt, anguish, and existential questioning about the existence of God itself. It's not worship, it's confrontation. A direct dialogue challenging the very faith that shaped and scarred him. That defiance left many wondering, what pushed him to wage such a fierce war against religion? The answer lies in a past marked by years of oppression, church doctrine used as a weapon, forced prayer sessions, and even attempts at gay conversion through exorcism rituals. Those experiences didn't break him, they ignited rebellion. And the more resistance he faced, the louder and sharper his music became. Today, Frank Ocean has fully walked away from the church, never looking back. He lives openly, unapologetically, and on his own terms. He has become an icon of the Black queer community and the first openly queer male artist to win a Grammy while redefining modern R&B. His music doesn't just resonate, it liberates. It speaks for the silenced, the shamed, and the marginalized, especially LGBTQ+ individuals trapped within conservative religious worlds. Lil Nas X. From a conservative Baptist upbringing to the self-crowned king of hell, sliding down a pole, giving Satan a lap dance, and symbolically nailing Jesus to the cross in some of the most shocking music videos of modern pop culture. Born Montero Lamar Hill, Lil Nas X shattered records with Old Town Road, racked up multiple Grammys, and rose as a fearless cultural icon defined by bold fashion and unapologetic self-expression. But long before the fame, he grew up in Lithia Springs, Georgia, inside an extremely strict Baptist household where religion shaped every breath of daily life. When his mother struggled with severe drug addiction, his father stepped in as the family's spiritual backbone, dragging his son to church in hopes of saving him from what he believed was a dangerous path. From a very young age, Lil Nas X sang in the church choir, absorbing sermons that branded homosexuality as a sin, a one-way ticket to hell. Night after night, the boy was forced to kneel for hours in prayer, begging God to fix him, to make him stop being gay. Yet in those long, suffocating prayers, something unexpected ignited, a quiet but growing rebellion. In 2017, that rebellion found its first outlet when Lil Nas X began uploading music to SoundCloud, cracking open the door to a new destiny. By 2019, everything exploded. Defying his family, his church, and the world that raised him, he came out as gay. On June 30, 2019, the final day of Pride Month, he made it public with a single tweet that shook both fans and critics. But for Lil Nas X, that was only the beginning. On March 26, 2021, he dropped the explosive music video Montero, Call Me By Your Name, instantly igniting global outrage. In it, Lil Nas X descends into hell, performs a seductive lap dance for Satan, snaps his neck, and crowns himself the ruler of the underworld. No mainstream artist had ever dared to rebel so openly, so violently, against religious symbolism. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Pastors condemned him, religious leaders fumed, and much of the Black Christian community accused him of mocking the cross and desecrating their faith. Yet nothing slowed him down. Through his art, Lil Nas X openly challenged what he saw as religion's long-standing oppression of the LGBTQ+ community, especially queer Black youth like himself. He was no longer the child praying to be fixed, no longer terrified of church curses or eternal damnation. His message was clear and defiant. If hell is where they say I belong, then I'll rule it. By January 12, 2024, Lil Nas X once again set fire to religious debate with the release of J. Christ. In the song and visuals, he portrays Jesus himself, nailed to the cross, resurrected, and dancing in blinding light. The message went beyond provocation. It forced audiences to confront the religious teachings passed down for generations and question who they truly serve. Despite renewed calls for boycotts from pastors and Baptist communities, Lil Nas X stood unshaken. He continued releasing music, selling millions of records, and collecting awards, including Grammys and major industry honors. Lil Nas X didn't just win in music. He became a symbol of resistance against rigid religious dogma and suffocating social norms. An impossible-to-ignore voice for anyone fighting to live authentically in a world that tells them they are wrong simply for being who they are. Angel Reese. Angel Reese, a devoted Baptist basketball player, made headlines when she publicly came out as gay, an announcement that directly challenged the religious teachings she was raised with. A rising force in the basketball world, Reese is an NCAA champion and a future WNBA star, famously nicknamed Bayou Barbie, for her fierce dominance on the court and her massive influence off it. She grew up in a deeply conservative Christian household in Randallstown, Maryland. Her mother, a former college basketball player herself, shaped Angel's love for the game and faithfully brought her to Baptist church every week. From an early age, Angel was taught that homosexuality was a sin and that God alone was directing her path. Those beliefs became the foundation of her identity. Before every game, she prayed, placing her dreams, her future, and her faith entirely in God's hands. But everything changed the moment she discovered love. Love for another woman. In 2023, Angel Reese made a bold and life-altering decision. She publicly revealed her relationship with her girlfriend, rapper Latto, a move that sent shockwaves through her fanbase. Photos and videos of the couple, filled with joy and affection, appeared on her Instagram stories and quickly ignited backlash. Conservative Christian groups and longtime fans flooded social media with harsh accusations. "You're betraying God. You're destroying the image of sports. I wanted my daughter to look up to you." The criticism was relentless. Yet Reese refused to back down. She chose authenticity over approval. After the backlash and informal boycott, she quietly stopped attending church, not out of hatred for religion, but exhaustion from judgment. She never launched attacks against faith itself. Instead, her simple act of loving openly became her strongest form of resistance. As a lesbian athlete in a sports world still dominated by traditional expectations and rigid stereotypes, Angel was done hiding. She no longer wanted to live behind whispers, assumptions, or carefully crafted silence. She knew coming out could cost her endorsements, fans, and support she had built over years, but hiding, she realized, was a deeper betrayal. Not just to herself, but to the woman she loved. No matter the cost, she stood her ground. And in doing so, she forced an uncomfortable conversation within the Black Christian community. Is there still room in faith for people like her? Perhaps what some call betrayal of God is really a journey towards self-discovery, where faith, identity, and modern understanding collide. Perhaps these stars aren't rejecting belief at all, but searching for peace beyond the psychological chains placed on them since childhood. Whatever the reason, their choices didn't just change their own lives. They reshaped the conversations around them. What do you think about these stories? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss more powerful celebrity stories like this one.